The summer sun hung low over the amber waves of corn, setting the fields aglow in hues of gold and flame. On the outskirts of a town forgotten by most maps, lived a man named Orrin Vance, a farmer with dirt on his boots and more patience than most saints. Orrin didn't ask for much. His days were filled with the rhythm of toil, planting, harvesting, mending fences. He lived alone on the 100-acre stretch that had belonged to his grandfather. His world was one of rusted tractors, calloused hands, and the quiet dignity of a man at peace with solitude. But the stars had other plans for Orrin. It began with the noise, a tearing thunder that split the sky, far too low and angry to be a storm. He'd just finished replacing a busted valve on the irrigation line when the sound cracked overhead. Looking up, he saw it, a streak of violet fire carving a trail through the clouds. Then the crash. The ground shook. Birds fled the trees. The cattle bellowed in panic. Orrin grabbed the first thing within reach, a pitchfork, and ran. The cornfield was a sea of stalks, still and whispering. He moved through it like a hunter, unsure of his prey. The trail was easy enough to follow. Flattened crops and burnt stems led him to a blackened crater that hadn't been there an hour ago. And in that crater, something stirred. It wasn't a machine. It was a person, or close to it. The figure rose with an elegance that didn't match her surroundings. Tall, sleek, her skin shimmered with a faint opal sheen. Dark armor clung to her like it had grown from her flesh, and her eyes burned a vibrant crimson, scanning him like he was an ant she'd never seen before. Then she moved, faster than he could think. A blade appeared in her hand, and she dashed forward with speed that blurred the edges of her body. Orrin didn't even have time to raise the pitchfork. But fate, or dumb luck, had a strange way of playing favorites. Just as the alien warrior lunged, her foot caught on the jagged edge of a buried irrigation pipe. Her momentum faltered, and in an effort to regain balance, she twisted midair and slammed headfirst into Orrin's chest. The impact knocked them both down. Orrin's elbow caught her helmet at a sharp angle, and with a sickening crack, the visor shattered. They rolled in the dirt, her blade flung from her grip. She let out a low groan and then silence. Orrin, breathless and wide-eyed, stared at her. She was unconscious. He had won. Somehow. For a long time he just lay there, unsure if he was dead or dreaming. Eventually he sat up and looked her over. Aside from the shimmering armor, she looked human. Almost. Her hair was braided in a warrior's pattern, coiled tight against her skull. Her ears tapered ever so slightly, and her mouth, parted in unconsciousness, was framed by two vertical slits that flexed with each breath. "What the hell are you?" he muttered. Orrin wasn't a man who believed in aliens, not really. But he wasn't an idiot either. She'd come from the sky. She wasn't speaking English or any language he recognized. And no one from around here had skin that faintly glowed under the setting sun. Still, she was alive. And if there was one thing Orrin didn't do, it was leave people, creatures, to suffer. He hauled her out of the crater, grunting under her surprising weight. She was lean, yes, but dense with muscle, heavier than she looked. He carried her back toward his barn, thinking how crazy this was. Maybe she'd wake up and stab him. Maybe the government would show up any minute. Or maybe this was all just a heatstroke-induced hallucination. The barn had once housed horses, now replaced by tools and hay bales. He laid her gently atop a pile of canvas sacks, her breathing steady but slow. He looked at the broken blade she'd dropped. Alien metallurgy, slick and seamless. Then he looked back at her. She was beautiful in that sharp, lethal kind of way, like a falcon or a storm cloud. And something about her unconscious form tugged at a long-buried ache in him. The ache of someone who'd been alone too long. Night fell. Orrin sat outside the barn on an old lawn chair, shotgun by his side, eyes locked on the door. Around midnight he heard movement. He stood up. She emerged slowly, silhouetted against the warm barn light. She wasn't staggering anymore. Her posture was tense, ready. Her crimson eyes caught the moonlight and narrowed. "You are this planet's warrior?" she asked in accented English. No. I'm a farmer, Oren replied, stunned she could speak his language at all. She looked at him, confused. Then, you are Varric? Defender caste. He shook his head. Nope. Just plant crops and mend fences. She frowned. You struck me down. You bested Mazerai of Zelthun in single combat. That cannot be accident. Oren blinked. You tripped. Her frown deepened. Impossible. I have trained since hatch cycle. Honed in fire. I do not trip. Well, you did. Right over a pipe. She glanced back at the cornfield, then turned to him with narrowed eyes. Then your terrain, your land, is your weapon. He paused. Sure. She crossed her arms, and her expression shifted from suspicion to something more calculating. You have strength, she said slowly, hidden behind your soft outer frame. Oren almost choked. Soft. You carried me, rescued me. I should kill you for the dishonor of defeat, but instead I owe you a life debt. Oren stepped back. Now hold on, there's no need for debts or killing. Let's just call it even. All right? But Mazerai didn't move. Her expression was grave. You have shown power, strategy, mercy. These are the qualities of a bonded warrior. I must observe you. You want to what? Observe, study, perhaps even train with you. I'm not training. I'm trying to harvest soybeans. Mezerai's eyes lit with unfamiliar curiosity. Soybeans are powerful? They make tofu. She tilted her head, puzzled. You are stranger than I imagined. And you're standing in my barn like it's normal to crash from space and talk about duels. They stared at each other in silence. And then, to Oren's utter shock, Mazerai smiled. It was the faintest thing. Just a twitch at the corner of her lips. But it was real. Perhaps, deep in that alien heart of hers, something stirred. Later, as she lay on a makeshift cot in the barn, Mazerai whispered to herself in her native tongue. She had come to Earth expecting weaklings. She'd come as a scout, a test before invasion. But this strange male, the farmer, had confused her. Not just because he'd defeated her, but because he had not gloated, had not harmed her. He had carried her, and his hands had been gentle. She would stay, for now, to understand, to watch him, and maybe to discover why her chest felt so strange whenever he smiled. Morning broke with the scent of dew and diesel. The old tractor groaned to life as Oren set off across the fields, the tires cutting soft paths between the rows. He expected the alien to be gone by now. No way someone like her, what was her name again? Mazerai, would hang around after being taken down by corn and clumsiness. But she wasn't gone. She was standing in the soybean patch, perfectly still, arms crossed over her armored chest, watching him. Did you sleep at all? He called out. I do not require sleep daily. Only after combat cycles or astral shifts, she said, as if it should be obvious. Right? Must be nice. She tilted her head. You operate these metal beasts for food creation? More or less. I wish to see how they work. There is strategy in simplicity. Oren chuckled and waved her over. Come on then. Let's make a farmer out of you. It turned out Mazerai had no concept of subtlety. She studied the tractor like it was a war machine, examining every bolt, sniffing the diesel fumes, tapping the metal as though testing its battle integrity. When Oren offered her the seat, she took it as a challenge. I will not falter. You're just driving, not dueling. She growled in Zelthun under her breath but climbed up. The moment the tractor jerked forward under her uncertain grip, she let out a short, startled noise, half snarl, half squeak. Oren, riding beside her, barely held in a laugh. Is the beast resisting control? She asked. Nope. That's just how old tractors work. Despite her warrior's pride, Mazerai leaned into the lesson. She asked questions. Too many questions. About torque. About crop yield. About the smell of fresh-turned soil. To Oren's surprise, she absorbed everything. Not just mechanically, but with curiosity. Like she wasn't just tolerating this experience, but choosing it. Days passed. Mazerai didn't leave. She started helping. At first, Oren thought she might be casing the place for a return invasion. But the more time they spent together, the more that theory crumbled. She was stronger than any human, lifting bags of seed like they were air. She moved with precision, barely rustling the leaves. But she lacked context. She thought the scarecrow was a threat and nearly vaporized it. She ate unripe tomatoes straight from the vine and called them tangy nutrition bombs. One morning, Oren found her sitting cross-legged in the cornfield, hands pressed to the soil, eyes closed. "You praying?" he asked, curious. She opened one eye. "I am meditating in accordance with Zelthun battle recovery rituals. In my corn, it is peaceful. The stalks hum." He scratched the back of his neck. "You're a strange one." She considered him. "You are stranger still. You speak to soil like it is a sibling." Oren smirked. "Well, it feeds me. That's family enough." In the evenings, they sat on the porch. At first, the silence between them was heavy. Oren didn't know what to ask a space warrior, and Mazerai didn't understand half of what he said. But slowly, words bridged the gap. She asked about Earth customs, why he lived alone, what cow tipping was. When she asked why he didn't have a mate, Oren shrugged. "Just never found someone who wanted all this," he said, gesturing at the farm. "Too much mud. Not enough excitement." Mazerai tilted her head. "You are sturdy, reliable. Why would this not be valuable in a mate?" He laughed. "You make it sound like I'm a good plow horse." She blinked. "Is that a compliment?" That night, under the stars, she sat a little closer than usual. Oren noticed but said nothing. It wasn't until the 5th day that trouble returned. A deep hum rolled over the field. Not thunder, this was different. Mechanical, rhythmic, something familiar to Mazerai. She rose instantly, posture tight. "A seeker drone." Oren frowned. "From your people?" "Yes, they are searching for me. I was declared missing in action. If they find me alive, alone, bonded to a non-combatant." "Bonded?" he asked, heart skipping. She didn't answer. Instead, she turned, scanning the horizon. "We must hide. If they detect your presence." The drone crested over the treetops, sleek and silver, eyes glowing blue. Mazerai hissed, "Stay behind me." She surged forward, drawing her backup blade from her gauntlet. But Oren, without thinking, grabbed a handful of old tarp and tossed it over the nearest reflective surface, the tractor's chrome bumper. Then he pulled Mazerai down behind a hay bale. "What are you?" "Shoo!" he whispered. "Your blade gleams. Cover it." To her surprise, she obeyed. The drone passed overhead, scanned briefly, then turned west and vanished over the pines. They both exhaled. Mazerai stared at him. "You used non-combat instinct to defeat a drone." "Again." "I used a tarp." "You keep doing this." "Doing what?" "Surprising me." Her tone wasn't annoyed. It was almost admiring. That night, Oren found her sitting alone on the porch swing. No armor, just the tight, dark undersuit she wore beneath it. Her hair, unbraided, fell across her shoulders in waves. "You okay?" he asked. She didn't look at him. "I was bred for war, not peace. Yet this," she gestured around the farm, "feels more honest than any campaign I've fought." He sat beside her. The swing creaked gently beneath their weight. "I was told your kind were soft, lazy, that earth was ripe for the taking. But now, I do not know what to believe." Oren didn't speak. He let the cicadas do the talking for a while. Mazerai turned to him at last. "Do you want me to leave?" He looked at her, at the softness creeping into her voice, the vulnerability behind those crimson eyes. "No," he said quietly. "I don't." Her eyes searched his face. "Then I will stay. For now." And without meaning to, without a plan or strategy, her hand brushed his. Just a moment, a fleeting, quiet promise. Neither of them pulled away. The days blurred in golden light and humming insects. Mazerai learned how to milk goats, though she insisted the animals were testing her resolve, and Oren let her try her hand at plowing with the old manual rig. She broke it, twice, laughed once. At night, the stars watched in silence as the distance between them narrowed. It wasn't just physical proximity anymore. It was something deeper, quiet looks, casual touches that lingered. Oren catching himself watching her when she didn't realize. Mazurai making excuses to work beside him, even on tasks beneath her warrior pride. Neither spoke of it, but both felt it. One late afternoon, Oren was repairing a snapped fence post at the edge of the property. The sun painted the sky in fire and rose. Mazurai stood nearby, holding the replacement post like it was a staff. "You don't have to hover," he teased. "I am ensuring you do not injure yourself again. That was one time. You fall off a silo once, and suddenly, twice. The second time was into the grain hopper." He groaned. "You keep track of that?" "I am a soldier. I remember all battles." He grinned and kept hammering. But the next moment, her voice softened. "Oren." He glanced up. Her eyes held a storm of things she wasn't sure how to say. "I felt something," she said. "When the drone passed. When you shielded me. It wasn't fear." He wiped sweat from his brow. "What was it?" Her fingers tightened on the post. "Panic. Not for myself, for you. I've led battalions, Oren. Commanded siegecraft. Seen soldiers incinerated. But nothing rattled me like the idea that you'd be taken, hurt, because of me." Oren stood, watching her carefully. "I came here as a weapon," she said quietly. "Now I find myself afraid of what I'm feeling." He stepped closer. "It's not weakness, Mazurai. It's care. That's strength too." Her lips parted, but no words came out. So Oren did something unexpected. He reached for her hand. First, she stiffened. Her fingers were calloused, alien, powerful. But then, slowly, she curled them around his. Not as a reflex, as a choice. That evening, a storm rolled over the land, thunder cracking like gunfire, rain lashing the windows. Oren lit lanterns, checked on the livestock, then found Mazurai on the porch again. This time, she wasn't armored. She wore an old earth hoodie. His hoodie, oversized on her tall frame, and a pair of loose pants tied with rope. Her wet hair clung to her temples. "You look like you robbed a thrift store," he said, amused. "I enjoy your human garments. They are soft. And they smell like you." He froze for a beat. She realized it a moment later, cheeks flushing an odd violet shade. "That was not meant to be unsettling." "No, it's not. Just caught me off guard." They stood there in the hush after the thunder, the warm light between them and the storm beyond. Then she looked at him, truly looked, and stepped closer. "Oren, if I asked you something dangerous, would you still answer me honestly?" He nodded. "If I stayed," she said softly, "not as a soldier but as me, would you want that?" He didn't hesitate. "I already do." The first kiss wasn't wild or passionate. It was slow. Testing, as if Mazurai wasn't sure if the skin of a human man would even feel right beneath her lips. But when they touched, his hands at her waist, her palms cupping his jaw, something clicked. She tasted like stormlight and something wild, and he kissed her like the earth had been waiting its whole life to welcome the stars home. That night, they lay in the barn loft. It wasn't glamorous. There were itchy blankets and the smell of hay, but neither cared. Her armor lay forgotten beside a bale. His shirt was tossed somewhere beneath the ladder. The space between them had dissolved completely. Mazurai traced the lines of his chest with a warrior's reverence, as if studying a relic. "You are not like the others," she whispered. "I hope not." She laughed, low and deep. "I mean you're kind. You shouldn't be able to undo me like this. I train to resist all foreign manipulations, emotional or otherwise. And yet," he murmured, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face, "here you are." The next morning, Dawn found them tangled beneath the blankets, her head on his shoulder, his fingers tracing idle circles on her bare back. She stirred, eyes blinking open. "I did not mean for this to happen," she said. "Me neither. But I'm not sorry." "Me neither." She rose on one elbow, serious now. This, whatever it is, if my people return, they will not accept it. You'll be seen as a contaminant. I may be marked for execution. Or worse, cleansing. Oren's jaw tightened. Then we fight. Or run. Whatever it takes. She stared at him like she couldn't believe he'd say that so easily. And then she smiled. A real, deep smile that made her eyes glow from within. I think I understand now, she said. Why your kind frightens ours. It is not your weapons. Or your history. What is it, then? She leaned in, pressing her forehead to his. You love like fire. And you burn everything we thought we knew. That day, she stayed close as he worked the fields. They moved as one, her learning his rhythm, him adapting to hers. There were no longer two separate worlds. Only one strange, shared one. Somewhere between furrowed earth and alien sky. Oren caught her looking at him more often. Not with suspicion, but with something far more dangerous. Longing. The day began with birdsong and the golden warmth of a clear sky. Mazurai had just laughed, as she spilled goat milk trying to fill a pail. Oren teased her, play wrestled her into the hay, and kissed her until the pail no longer mattered. And then came the rumble. Not thunder, not tractors, not earth-made at all. It was the low-pitched vibration of a Dravari drop cruiser, one of Mezurai's own fleet. It descended like a judgment, eclipsing the sun, kicking up clouds of dust and fear. Mazurai was already on her feet, eyes darkening. They've found me. Oren didn't ask how, didn't need to. She moved with sharp, rehearsed urgency, already pulling on armor from a crate she'd left in the barn, armor she had sworn she'd never wear again. But this wasn't to protect herself. It was for him. Stay inside the root cellar, she barked. No, Oren's voice was quiet, but final. She whirled. You'll get yourself killed. You're not facing this alone. Something in her chest twisted violently. He looked so human, so small compared to her, and yet, somehow larger than anyone she'd ever known. She pulled him close, pressing her forehead against his. Then we fight as one. The drop cruiser slammed down in the north field, crushing the last of the corn rows. The hatch hissed open, steam venting like a beast's breath. 3 figures emerged, each over 8 feet tall, armored in living metal with weapons that could level buildings. The one in the center wore crimson plating. Commander Mazurai, the figure said, voice mechanical, amplified. You were given direct orders. Return. Now. I am no longer under your command. You are under Dravari law. Your association with this organic male is a contamination. This world is not recognized. The human will be sterilized and extracted. You will be cleansed and reconditioned. Oren stepped forward. Like hell I will. The Dravari turned toward him, a weapon forming from its gauntlet. That was a mistake. Mazurai lunged like a thunderbolt. In 2 seconds, she had ripped the weapon off the commander's arm and flung it into the wheat. I chose him, she said, her voice a cold roar. You will not touch what I love. The word love rang louder than the impact. Behind the other 2 soldiers, uncertainty sparked. One took half a step back. The commander, however, remained unfazed. You were the finest of us. Now you're a corrupted relic. Then I will build something better than anything you've ever known. With a guttural yell, the commander charged. Mazurai met her halfway. Steel clashed. Earth cracked. Oren watched for a second too long before the second warrior turned toward him. He ran, straight to the barn, grabbing the jury-rigged plasma welder he'd hidden during the last incident. Not exactly a weapon, but enough to cut through Dravari armor in close quarters. As the alien bore down, Oren sidestepped, ducked low, and plunged the welder into the back of the creature's knee joint. A hiss, a shriek, and a toppled giant. That's 2, he muttered to himself. One with a rake, one with a welder. Meanwhile, Mazurai fought like fury incarnate. Sparks flew as her blade cleaved through armor. Every move was precise, brutal, practiced, but fueled now by something she'd never fought for before. Someone she couldn't live without. The commander landed a heavy blow to her ribs. She staggered, blood at her lips. Oren saw it and yelled, "Mez!" That word gave her fire. With a roar, she surged forward, feinted, flipped her opponent, and slammed a knee into the throat cavity of the armor. A hiss, a crunch, silence. She stood over the broken commander, chest heaving, hair wild, blood on her mouth. The last soldier still standing looked between her and Oren, then dropped his weapon and raised his hands. "I never saw you," he said. "Not like this. I see you now." And with that, he turned and vanished into the dropship. The engines spun up. Moments later, the cruiser was lifting away, retreating. Back at the farmhouse, she collapsed on the steps. Oren knelt beside her, wiping her cheek. "You okay?" "I will be." She looked up at him, eyes glassy with exhaustion and something else. "I meant what I said. I love you, Oren." He smiled. "I love you too." She closed her eyes and leaned against him. "I never thought I'd belong somewhere. Not really. But this farm, this land, it's home." He kissed her temple. "Then stay. Let's make a life here. We'll plant more. Fix the barn. And if they come again." "They won't," she said. "Word will spread that a human made a Dravari warrior fall in love, and she chose to stay. They'll mock it at first, but they'll wonder, and then they'll come curious, not hostile." 3 months later, Mazurai stood in the field with Oren, both barefoot, watching new shoots rise from the soil. Her armor had been packed away, replaced by simple earth clothes that still hung oddly on her. But she liked them. In her hand, she held a small scanner. On it, a soft pulse glowed. "You're sure?" Oren asked, staring at it. She nodded. "Your seed's tenacious." He laughed, stunned. "We're gonna have a child? Half human, half Dravari, raised with goats and dirt and love." Oren grinned and pulled her into a hug that nearly lifted her off the ground. "Guess I'll need to build a crib that can handle some serious strength. Or a child that can handle your clumsiness." They laughed, kissed, and stood there as the sun bathed the field. Love had taken root, and in the quiet world of soil and stars, they were no longer farmer and alien. They were family.